So we know who won the election between Senator Casey and the Republican challenger McCormick. So why are the votes still being counted? Let's talk about it on an Azimuth podcast. I'm Barrett McNabb, and with me is Kimberly McNabb. So the Secretary of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania announced that an automatic statewide recount has been triggered, and that's because the difference right now is about 23,000, so it's within the 0.5% that automatically makes that recount triggered. So they have until November 26th at noon to finish and must be submitted by the 27th. Now, officials estimate there are fewer than 80,000 provisional ballots left.
And Pennsylvania Supreme Court, which is Democratic, like the election officials themselves, said that ballots must be dated properly.
Right.
And an election official said, well, people violate laws all the time, anytime they want.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and listen to this election official in her own words.
I move that we reject all three categories of these ballots.
Your motion is to reject or dismiss the challenges in this category in front of you?
Correct, yep.
Not going to second that, mostly because I think we all know that precedent by a court doesn't matter anymore in this country, and people violate laws anytime they want. So for me, if I violate this law, it's because I want a court to pay attention to it.
Okay, just want to make sure you understand that she's choosing to violate the law just so she can get the court's attention. Now, I think that is hugely problematic because here we go. You have an election official that is choosing to wantonly violate the law, and also the state Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, they're ruling that the provisional ballots must be signed in two separate locations, and that any provisional ballot that only has one signature should not be counted. And that's what the first gentleman was saying, is we need to abide by the Supreme Court's rules and we can't count these. And what's happening is this election official and effectively this party are continuing to count illegal ballots, meaning ballots that are provisional but are missing the required signatures on there, and going ahead and throwing them in with ballots that are have both signatures. And so it's going to cause a huge issue.
Well, unfortunately, she's not wrong in one part. People do violate the law all the time. I mean, that's just the danger of being the culture that we're in, where, out in California, you can steal $950 worth of stuff until it's counted as a felony, so people just walk off. I mean, defunding the police, and I mean, you're sending the signal to everyone else in every part of life that it's okay to break the law.
Right. I mean, here you have, instances of this is in Pennsylvania still, voter registrations that were come in, that there were thousands of them, and they were filled out in the same handwriting. The names weren't matching the signatures. The addresses weren't matching where the people resided. And so, Trump brought this forward and said this is an instance of voter fraud. Now, I would say it's voter registration fraud, but it's still voter fraud. How many of those people actually got these provisional ballots and then did their single signature but didn't do their secondary signature on the back of the form? And for her to just go ahead and to say, hey, elections matter and things like that, but you already had instances that are currently being investigated of voter registration fraud. And so you need to take this seriously and make sure that things are done, I's are dotted and T's are crossed.
I mean, we all know of instances where just the most minor technicality got something thrown out, where it was a college application or a test or, home loan application. I mean, it exists everywhere. It should exist here. But, other Democratic institutions are also criticizing these election officials. I mean, You have the New York Times, you have the Washington Post putting out editorials criticizing this. Washington Post said, elections have rules and rules must be followed. Hello. Defying rules is corrosive to democracy and invites the same for others. How would these Democratic elections officials like it if Casey were winning and the Republicans were the ones breaking the rules?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that is a true point couldn't be said, Kimberly. The reason that rules exist is so that there is a level playing field.
And everybody knows what to do.
Everybody knows what to do. And if everybody just did whatever they want, that's what happens in, Marxist and socialist and communist countries, is that, like Venezuela, for instance. There is no way that Maduro won the Venezuelan election. She straight up stole that. But it's because he's in power and he's able to just count the votes that he wants to count and throw away the votes that he doesn't want to count. And that is exactly what is going on here. What needs to happen, honestly, is clearly these election officials are corrupt. They need to be replaced immediately. And there needs to be, instead of this three panel of all Democrats, there needs to be Republicans on that panel, and they need to count these ballots, and they need to have a Republican and a Democrat look at the ballot, similar to the famous photographs. I'll see if I can find one and put it up here. The famous photographs of the hanging chads in the 2000 election, where you have individuals with magnifying glasses looking to see what percentage of the hanging chad was remaining, but they had Republicans and Democrats each looking at every ballot. I think this one's good. I also think this one's good. Too bad it's for George Bush. I think this, if the Democrat was saying it, I think this one's good, and the Democrat, nope, this one's not good. Good for Al Gore. So having that going over each one, but it looks like these guys are just having Democrats do this stuff, and she's obviously not following the rules.
Yeah, and she feels bold enough to say it out loud.
Yeah, she is straight up saying it out loud and on video. I am going to break the law, and because people break laws all the time, so why not?
Why not me?
Yeah, this is absolutely absurd. This is what makes the mockery of our democracy. And when we heard all during this election cycle that democracy is at stake. Honestly, the Democrats don't realize that the whole time they were talking about themselves. They weren't talking about the Republicans. They were just ratting themselves out, to have, the primary rules change and to not have Dean Phillips or RFK Jr. primary Joe Biden. I mean, they have Nancy Pelosi saying, I wish there would have been an open primary. There was an open primary. There was. It's just that the Democrats' National Convention changed the rules. And anytime anybody like Dean Phillips won some primary votes, they changed the rules and said, well, votes automatically go to Biden. I mean,
like, how is that
democracy?
Election? Yeah. And, guess what, lady? Democracies only work when there's voter confidence, and you're just crushing it.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. I mean, especially, it'd be one thing if this was a closed-door session and she was able to speak to her Democrat colleagues in confidence. But this is straight up on video where she is admitting that she is going to break the law. Let's listen to it again.
I move that we reject all three categories of these ballots.
Your motion is to reject or dismiss the challenges in this category in front of you?
Correct, yep.
Not going to second that, mostly because I think we all know that precedent by a court doesn't matter anymore in this country, and people violate laws anytime they want. So for me, if I violate this law, it's because I want a court to pay attention to it.
If a speech could give a middle finger.
Yeah, absolutely. This should outrage everybody. Honestly, I've seen it a couple of times in some news articles, but I have, as far as me looking on YouTube videos and always trying to come up with video ideas, I don't see this out there a lot. There's a little bit of it, but you should be, forwarding this to everybody and be outraged. The liberals should be outraged about this because, again, if it's true that you're afraid democracy is being undermined, this woman right here is doing just that.
Yep. And are there any repercussions for this?
We'll have to see. Honestly, it depends on how the law is written. Whatever the statute is, it typically has an associated either misdemeanor or felony, and depends on where your state, whether they use numbers or letters. In Texas, they use class A, B, C misdemeanors and class A, B, C felonies, and it depends on what the punishment is for whatever level of crime this is. I don't know if this is election fraud I would imagine it'd be a felony. So at least it's a felony conviction, and there's going to be an associated punishment range potentially for her if she's found convicted. But at a minimum, she could be in contempt of court for the Supreme Court ruling, and she's just not going to follow it. They may say, hey, look, how about you go ahead and hang out for 30 days in jail while you think about it, and then come back out and see if your attitude changes. And that's something that doesn't require a trial. They're just saying you're in violation and contempt of court, and you're going to cool your heels for a little bit, and then see what you have to say. So I mean, she could get some immediate jail time just to sit down and shut up and color.
Yeah, I would love to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for tuning into Azimuth Podcast, and please stay tuned after these messages.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in.